Order.
Resumption of debate on a motion standing in the name of the Leader of the House.
Are there any members who wish to speak on the motion? Okay, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank all MPs who have spoken on the motion, on both sides of the House. This is an important debate because it is about matters that affect the standing and the integrity of our Parliament. I thank the MPs who have spoken in support of the motion. They have correctly pointed out that this motion is about principles and values that we uphold. As Mr. Syed Harun and Ms. Kwa Bunting said, the public rightfully holds high expectations of trust in our Parliament, and this is even more so for the Leader of the Opposition. Ms. Tin Pei Ling also highlighted the quality of that the quality of our Parliament embodies the values and aspirations of Singaporeans, and this in turn affects how we are regarded on the global stage. And as Mr. Mark Lee pointed out, trust in our Parliament is a foundational asset for Singapore, underpinning the confidence in our institutions. Let me turn to the Workers' Party position, and I note that all members of the Workers' Party who spoke on the substantive speeches made it a point to thank their supporters and their constituents and all the people who have faith in you, who have shown you support, and who have basically cheered you on. It is good that the opposition in Singapore has such support. But the flip side is also true. If people give you such unstinting, warm support, you should not let them down. You should, when in Parliament, uphold principles of integrity and values because Singaporeans deserve a good opposition. Singaporeans deserve an opposition who will uphold the rule of law, who will observe due process, and who will respect the integrity of our institutions. But have the WP served their supporters well in the positions that you have taken today? I very respectfully say the answer is no. The position taken by the Leader of the Opposition and the Workers' Party members who have spoken is disappointing. The sum total of their position today has really been that, the rules don't apply to us. And let's make a little point here. Let's have a little jab there. But let's not deal with the real issue. The real is, let's not engage with the real fundamental point that we are talking about, which is what kind of Parliament ought we to be. And here, let me come to the motion. Just give me a moment. So, by and large, although the Leader of the Opposition has said that he's lifted the whip, actually the positions do appear to be aligned across the board. I don't think there's any real difference in the position that the Workers' Party members have taken. So they're able to agree to paragraphs 1 and 6 of the motion. Paragraph 1 affirms that honesty and integrity are fundamental pillars of Singapore's parliamentary and political system. So they accept that honesty and integrity are fundamental pillars of our parliamentary and political system, and they agree with paragraph 6, which means that they agree to call on all members to uphold our solemn duty to respect and abide by the law and act with integrity at all times and honor the trust placed in us by Singaporeans. At the same time, however, they seem to have difficulty with the other limbs. So the first thing is paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 calls on us to note the judgment where the High Court upheld Mr. Singh's conviction for lying to the Committee of Privileges. I don't understand the difficulty in noting the High Court judgment, which basically means that we have taken due note of what the court has found. What is the difficulty with noting that? And secondly, the findings of the Committee of Privileges that he had guided Ms. Raisa Khan to continue with her lie to Parliament. Now today, they've all had a problem noting the findings of the Committee of Privileges. But I think they may have forgotten that when the Committee of Privileges report was actually presented to Parliament several years ago, Parliament actually did resolve to note the COP report. So this doesn't do anything more than call on Parliament to do something it has already done. But then, apart from that, having agreed that honesty and integrity are fundamental, having agreed that we must act with integrity at all times and respect and abide by the law, they're somehow unable to agree that lying to the COP and guiding an MP to continue with her untruth to Parliament is dishonourable conduct and unbecoming of a Member of Parliament, or to express any regret about it. That's really very puzzling. They're also unable to consider, or they find themselves unable to consider, that an MP who has been convicted by court for lying and for misconducting himself in the manner described is unsuitable for the role of the leader of the opposition. It's troubling that the Workers' Party cannot see what must surely be apparent to everyone, the inherent contradictions in their position and how much of a credibility gap there is. You cannot, on the one hand, say, I uphold the higher standards, then on the other hand say that I have a problem saying that conduct like this is dishonourable. It's just inconsistent. But anyway, let us examine the reasons that the Workers' Party members have put forward for their position. And I'll go through it one by one. So the first point is Mr. Singh basically is saying that he disagrees with the High Court decision, or with the court decisions. Now, we know that the courts have found Mr. Singh guilty on 2 counts of lying to the COP, and they made other findings which I referred to in my earlier speech. After the High Court decision, Mr. Singh said, I respect and accept the judgment fully and without reservation. On the face of it, accepting the judgment should mean that he accepts the verdict. But of course, Mr. Singh now tells us that that is not the case. In fact, he had an issue because he said that I did not highlight what he said earlier about the judgment, also because at that same interview he had said that the verdict was disappointing. That is true. I looked very carefully at the media statement. He said it was disappointing, and then he went on to say, in fact, let me just look at that. He went on to say that I've always had deep respect for the independence, rigor, and professionalism of the courts. He said that while he was disappointed with the verdict, he respected and accepted the judgment fully and without reservation. Actually, at that time, he never said that he disagreed with the verdict. He just said it was disappointing. And there's a big difference between saying that something's disappointing and saying that you disagree with it. But on record, he had said it was disappointing. Then he went on to say that he respected and accepted the judgment fully and without reservation. But today, he comes to Parliament to say that actually what he really means is that he just, accepts that the courts are there, but he doesn't agree that they're correct. And earlier, of course, you'll notice when Mr. Speaker made his ruling, Mr. Singh also said that it was disappointing, but he accepted it fully and without reservation. So I think we all know today that when Mr. Singh tells you that he accepts what you say fully and without reservation, he means you're wrong. Words matter. They do. And when Mr. Singh says something, the question is, what are we to understand of it? And we have seen what the courts understood of it, and we have seen what the courts ruled that Ms. Khan understood of it. We've also seen what the Committee of Privileges understood of it. So, fundamentally, despite the fact that he's had the full opportunity to canvass his case, he's basically saying that he doesn't accept the court judgment. And this is really strange. Do you know why? It's strange because when the COP report was brought to Parliament, Mr. Singh vehemently disputed it at that time. And don't forget that this is a committee of Parliament that has sat on it. And Mr. Singh has come to this Parliament today to say, as he has said many times, Parliament is supreme. And when you have a select committee of Parliament that makes a finding, it should be supreme. But no, if the finding affects Mr. Singh, it's not supreme, it's wrong. And at that time, we agreed to refer it to the PP, basically to allow him the benefit of canvassing his case in full, and so that we would have the benefit of a full finding, so that it could not be said that this Parliament somehow unilaterally made a decision based purely on the findings of the COP. And Mr. Singh had the opportunity to, well, firstly, the public prosecutor looked at it, took an independent view, and found that on the face of it, charges were made out. It went to the district court. The district court had the benefit of seeing witnesses, hearing evidence. Mr. Singh had the benefit of counsel. He had the right and the ability to cross-examine the witnesses, to show whether their evidence was really right or wrong. And the court listened to that. And the district court could not accept what he said and found that he had lied to the COP. Mr. Singh was dissatisfied with that. He went to the High Court. The High Court heard again the points which he wished to canvass, and he had the fullest opportunity to argue his case before the courts. And the High Court, too, reached the same conclusion. Basically, what Mr. Singh is saying today is that despite all of this, despite the fact that I had the fullest opportunity, every opportunity to contest this and bring evidence, they're wrong. I accept that Mr. Singh may not agree with it, but the point is this. In every society, there will be disputes. And when there are disputes, somebody has to decide. Because if one person says A and another person says B, who do you believe? And that is the reason why you have courts. That is the reason why you have courts as a neutral and independent arbiter with the opportunity for parties to bring their evidence and set out their case, and then the court decides. And so here we are today with court judgment, basically having found Mr. Singh guilty of lying, and we're being asked to note this. And in the light of this, how do we say that such conduct is acceptable? So when each of us go internationally and we are asked, oh, your leader of the opposition, he's been convicted for lying twice. How come? Is that okay? And our answer should be, oh yeah, it's okay because he says he's right. Court judgment doesn't matter. How would people regard Singapore in that situation? This is not about Mr. Singh per se. It is about the fact that his conduct has been adjudicated on by the courts. The courts have made a finding, and we are now left with a situation where, as a parliament, we have a leader of the opposition who has been found guilty of 2 counts of lying on oath. There's the district court finding that he had guided Ms. Khan to lie. And we have the COP report, don't forget Parliament is supreme, which has found that he had lied. So what are we to do in those circumstances? So I have to say that the first point that Mr. Singh has made is not really persuasive, and it doesn't answer the motion. I come now to the second part of what he said. Mr. Singh said that what he does accept is that he was guilty of taking too long to respond to Ms. Khan's lie in Parliament. That he takes responsibility for. He'd mentioned that in his media interview. He repeated it again today. But that actually is not the crux of the court finding, because the court did not find that he was liable because he took too long. In fact, the reasons that he gave for taking too long, in other words, allowing Ms. Khan to go and speak to her parents, etc., the court actually did not accept. And let me read what the court had said. The High Court essentially did not accept Mr. Singh's account of that. He said, a person's reaction or inaction to significant events is usually revealing of his or her understanding of the events. In this case, I find that the appellant's complete failure to follow up with Ms. Khan or the other WP leaders on the untruth for around 2 months after 8 August meeting up to the 3rd October meeting is probative of the making of the grave statement during the 8 August meeting and the appellant's prevailing understanding that there was no need to proactively clarify the untruth in Parliament. Indeed, if it was the appellant's view that Ms. Khan should at some point clarify the untruth, one would expect that steps would have been taken to decide what, when, and how such clarification should be made. The telling of the untruth was a significant event for the WP, given the potentially serious political fallout if it were not properly managed. Yet it is common ground that between the 8 August meeting and the 3rd October meeting, nothing was said between the appellant and Ms. Khan or among the WP leaders about making preparations for a clarification of the untruth. The complete absence of any discussion during this period is entirely consistent with Ms. Khan's evidence that at the 8 August meeting, the appellant had told her to take the untruth to the grave, where the upshot of the grave statement was that nothing further needed to be done about the untruth. The appellant's complete inaction between 8 August meeting and the 3rd October meeting stands in stark contrast with the appellant's involvement in drafting Ms. Khan's personal statement between 15 and 30th October 2021, following the meeting with Mr. Low on 11th October, etc. So the point is this. The court didn't say that, it was a matter of just delay. The court found that the explanation for delay was not believable and rejected it. And that was what led the court to believe, amongst other things, that the statement had in fact been made. Then I come to Ms. Lim's point, where Ms. Lim argues that basically, she's not been charged in court. This does not really affect her, not relevant to her. I go back to the terms of the motion. All I am asking here is to ask the House to note that the High Court judgment and the committee's findings have implications for Ms. Lim and Mr. Mohammed Faisal, which have to be considered separately. So I had actually, in my earlier speech, explained the linkage. It would have been clear from my reading of the court judgment. But let me just draw connect the dots for everyone. When the COP report came out, there were two things in relation to Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal. Let me deal with Ms. Lim first. One was that she had lied to the COP that the statement to take it to the grave was never said, that didn't happen. So one count was for lying to the COP. Then the other was for her involvement in guiding Ms. Khan to hide the untruth. Because if you tell somebody, or if you agree with taking it to the grave, then you're basically guiding somebody to keep it quiet. Those 2 points, Parliament said we would defer a decision on that until the outcome of Mr. Singh's case. So in other words, there are two outstanding things. And of course, Ms. Lim had disputed the COP findings. Now, Ms. Lim is correct. She wasn't a witness. She wasn't a party to the court proceedings. But the point is that the court had found that the statement was made and that Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal were present when it was made. And therefore, it must follow from there that the court findings are actually consistent with the COP report. That is why it has implications, because what's before Parliament, which had been deferred, is the COP report, which found that she lied and had been involved in guiding Ms. Khan. And we said, well, wait till the outcome of the case. Then you look at the case, and the court has looked at it. And the court says, yes, the meeting took place. They were both there. That statement was made. So it must follow, logically. That's why the court judgment has implications. Now, as to what we should do with regard to Ms. Lim, that's something that should be dealt with separately. I mean, the Speaker has already indicated that if you're making assertions or if you're dealing with a particular member, that should be the subject matter of separate motions. But I just wanted to make sure that in this motion that we note that, and we will come back. We will not take too long. I know Ms. Lim, somebody had asked Mr. Giam whether this will take a very long time. It should not take a long time, but today we wanted to deal with a specific topic. So I hope that addresses the issues with regard to the Lim, because it has implications for Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal. Now, with respect to Mr. Faisal, there was a bit of an attempt to muddy the waters here, because it was said that the police have already issued an advisory to Mr. Faisal, and therefore the matter should be considered closed. But Mr. Faisal was referred to the PP for a different matter. So with Mr. Faisal, there were three things. One, when he was before the COP, he had flat out refused to answer some of their queries. Now that is actually an offense. So for that, he was referred to the PP. Then there were two other remaining outstanding issues with respect to Mr. Faisal, and these are similar to the ones for Ms. Lim. One, for lying to the COP that the statement "take it to the grave" was not made. And secondly, for his involvement in guiding Ms. Khan to hide the untruth. So the first one, that's dealt with. And that's not the subject matter here. But the second two, we agreed to defer pending the outcome of Mr. Singh's case. And for the same reasons as for Ms. Lim, it has implications because Mr. Faisal was present at that meeting too. And in the court evidence, he had actually denied that any such, not court evidence, in the COP hearing, he had denied that such a statement was made. So that deals with that. Then, Ms. Lim and I think Ms. Giam have attempted to suggest that this is political punishment, that Mr. Singh is being punished twice. Actually, that is not the case. It's a very simple point. When you have a CEO of a company, and let's say he has been charged and convicted of a matter of a crime of dishonesty, How many companies actually say, yes, it's okay, Mr. CEO, please continue? How many? Not very many. Why? In fact, probably not at all. Why? Because those companies value their reputation. They know that every time they go and do business, people look at them and wonder, how, you're a company and your CEO has been convicted for lying of dishonesty. What sort of company are you? And that is the issue that's being discussed here. We have a parliament where you have the leader of the opposition, which is a significant position and role, who has been convicted of 2 counts of lying before a committee of parliament. And how does that look to other people outside? And how can we then say that for someone to whom this has happened is suitable to continue as leader of the opposition? And for the PAP side of the House, we say it's very difficult. But somehow, the WP doesn't seem to have a difficulty with this, which tells us something about the WP values. Then, Mr. Kenneth Cheong raised the question of Mr. Tan Chuan Jin and asked, nothing happened there, and why is that the case that, it was all right there and not here? I am frankly very disappointed in that stance, but it also shows that that Mr. Cheong doesn't quite understand the issue. In Mr. Tan Chuan Jin's case, he was asked to step down. As a matter of party discipline, he was told to resign his seat. Initially, if you read the Hansard carefully, then Prime Minister had said it was clear in his mind he would have had to step down as Speaker. He wanted to give him some time to settle constituency matters, settle the family matters, but it was clear that as Speaker he would have had to step down, and whether they should resign their seats, initially that was something to be thought about, but when it became clear that the conduct had not stopped, then Prime Minister said, you must step down. And Ms. Cheong had to step down too. So they resigned their seats. And Mr. Tan took responsibility. And I believe he had apologized to Singaporeans that it had happened. Here, Mr. Singh has not even been asked to resign his seat, at least not by us. And he doesn't seem to think that there is a problem with continuing as the leader of the opposition. There is no equivalence at all in those examples. And I think Ms. Cassandra, MP Cassandra, had a question about the Legal Profession Act. I think the short answer to that is that under the Legal Profession Act, Section 94 does provide that legal practitioners who have been convicted of an offence involving fraud or dishonesty may have to be referred, but that is a matter not for us, but for the Law Society, for the AGC, and for the courts. So I think that's with respect to, yes, Section 94 of the Legal Profession Act. So that brings me back to today's motion, and we have to ask ourselves about the questions, or rather the reasons that have been put forward by the Workers' Party. And having examined them, they don't hold water. And we really do have to look at how the Workers' Party had dealt with Ms. Raisa Khan before and Mr. Leon Pereira. They had, in the case of Ms. Khan, she was told she had to resign within 24 hours, otherwise she would be expelled. Or rather, she would be expelled within 24 hours if she did not resign. So somehow in Ms. Khan's case, lying was suddenly a very serious offence for the Workers' Party. And in Mr. Leon Pereira's case, he also had to step down because he had lied to the Workers' Party leadership. So it was very serious there. But somehow for the Workers' Party, when you have a case of their leader lying to the COP, and under oath at that, they seem to regard it differently. And that's very odd. The only possible conclusion when you compare this and the previous cases with Ms. Khan and Ms. Leon is that in those cases, the Workers' Party has made a political calculation as to whether those members should be kept or not. Ms. Khan was a liability, Mr. Pereira was dropped like a hot potato, but they have made, or appear to have made, a political calculation with respect to Mr. Singh, and then hope maybe over time people will forget. Instead of taking a principled stance on their party leader's conduct, which could be politically costly. So Ms. Khan and Mr. Pereira were expendable. Mr. Singh, it would appear, not. That is why today's motion, we have been hearing the equivocating and the temporizing and avoiding doing what they must know in their heart of hearts is the right thing to do. But that is not leadership, nor is it responsibility. And that is not what Singaporeans expect of political leaders and parties. That is not the way to build a first world parliament, or even a two-party system. That's not the way to build a party that aspires to offer an alternative government to Singaporeans one day. The WP MPs must surely know this, but they're all going along with the party line. It's not good for the WP, and it's not good for the opposition cause, and it's not good for Singapore. So at the end of the day, we have a scenario where Mr. Singh says he respects and accepts the judgment, but doesn't agree with it. The Workers' Party talks about the rule of law, but they set themselves above it. The Workers' Party calls for accountability, but they will not call their own member to account. So I hope the Workers' Party will remember that every time they stand up in Parliament from this day onwards and speak about accountability, they will be reminded of their standard of accountability. And every time they stand in Parliament and tell us about the rule of law and how we must abide by it, we will remind them how they have abided by the rule of law today. Well, we now have a much clearer idea of what the Workers' Party stands for, which is simply that the rules and the law apply to everyone else, but not to them. But, Mr. Speaker, this cannot be the standard that we set for our Parliament. We have a duty to Singaporeans and to Singapore to ensure that the high standards are maintained. We cannot endorse dishonourable conduct or ignore the court judgment. And we cannot talk about a first world Parliament and effective checks and balances if fundamental values of honesty, integrity and accountability are not upheld. As MPs, we have a solemn duty to make sure that politics in Singapore remains upright and honourable. So this motion goes beyond any individual or party or their actions. This motion is about upholding the integrity and standing of Parliament, upholding the standard of conduct of our MPs and how it reflects on our Parliament, and upholding our responsibilities as elected members of this House to honour the trust of our people and always do the right thing by them, even if it's politically inconvenient to do so. If members care about this, then I urge members to support the motion.
Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the proceedings on the business set down on the order paper for today be exempted at this day's sitting from the provisions of Standing Order number 2, please.
The question is the motion moved by the Deputy Leader. Those who agree say aye. Those who disagree say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Are there any clarifications for the Leader? Mr. Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I took some notes as the leader was speaking. If I got some of her representations wrong, please let me know. I'll correct them. Leader said the rules, the WP's position seemed to be that the rules do not apply to us. I don't believe this was the position anyone made. The rules certainly apply to us, but in the course of her speech, she also mentioned somebody has to decide. There's a judge, the judge makes a decision. Now, I fully accept the authority and the finality of the court's decision. I disagree with the findings. A judgment determines legal responsibility. It does not require a person to abandon their honest belief about their motivations and their values. I have not disappeared and avoided scrutiny. It's been 1 month since the judgment. I've done my work, I've continued to do my work, and I will continue to do my work faithfully as I have done for the last 15 years. On the point that the leader made about, just bear with me for a second. At the end, I think towards the end of her roundup speech, she said she gave us advice on what is good for the WP and good for the opposition. I think we can be the judge. We can be the judge of that, with due respect. We continue to serve faithfully. We have always championed the importance of a rational, responsible, respectable opposition in the House, and will continue to do so. In terms of this point, I mean, the opposition exists not because it's infallible, but because democratic systems, particularly one-party dominant systems, require challenge, require balance and alternative voices, genuine alternative voices. And as long as this role is performed lawfully, respectfully, it remains legitimate and important, and the Workers' Party will continue serving in this role. That's all I have to say, Mr. Speaker, with regard to clarifications. I had a clarification for the leader, which he hasn't replied, about the number of briefings that were given to me, number of trips I went to, which was a point she made. So I think she should close the loop on that.
Leader.
With respect to the last point, I don't have the number of briefings, but it wasn't a matter of quantity. The point about the leader of the opposition role is that it gets certain specific privileges, and that was one of them, and that was the point I was making, not about the quantity of them. Then the other point that Mr. Singh had made about, the WP being a judge of their own cause, I think that's exactly what we've seen today. He's been a judge in his own cause. And the other point that he made was that the opposition was not infallible. That I understand.
Mr. Singh?
I did not say I was a judge in my own cause. As I mentioned, the respected president who opened this House takes a view about a criminal conviction, his view, his honest, sincere view. I take my view as well, but that does not mean I disrespect the courts.
Leader?
Thank you, sir. The president who opened this House was not convicted of any offense of dishonesty. With respect to him, it was a matter of negligence. And the point really is that in this case, you have a court judgment. Mr. Singh has said that he disagrees with it. He may do so, but that does not mean that the court findings should not be noted. That does not mean that the conduct that was found in the court judgments should not be regarded as dishonorable or unbecoming. And it does not mean that we cannot express a view on his suitability. And when you have a conviction for lying before a COP and guiding a junior MP to lie or to maintain an untruth, that brings into question suitability for the position of an LO. And Mr. Singh is right. We are not infallible. All of us are not infallible, and the PAP is certainly not infallible. But the question is, when something goes wrong, what do you do? And at that crossroads of doing right and wrong, if you take one direction, it goes a certain path, and if you take another direction, it goes another path. And as I mentioned earlier, in the case of Ms. Khan, she was led along a certain path with the consequences that we see today. And the other point he made was that what is important is that we perform our role lawfully. And that is the point, isn't it? Because lying before the COP cannot be said to be performing that role lawfully.
Mr. Lim?
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to make two clarifications arising from the leader's roundup speech. The first is that she mentioned more than once that the party, Workers' Party, was somehow being inconsistent in the sense that in Ms. Raisa's case and also Mr. Leon Pereira's case, we seem to have acted very swiftly, whereas, in Mr. Singh's case, we seem to be acting politically, or some words to that effect. So actually, in my speech, I had attempted to address this by saying that the difference there is that in Ms. Raisa's case and as well as Mr. Leon Pereira's case, they admitted their wrongdoings. But in this case, Mr. Singh has contested the charges and still maintains his innocence today. So WP is acting on the judgment. As she noted, we have formed a disciplinary panel to look into whether Mr. Singh has contravened the Constitution. And although she says that she cannot wait, for us, that's fine. But the fact is that we have our processes and the process will take their course. The other clarification which I wish to make was in relation to Resolution 5. She mentioned that the High Court or the court has found that certain statements were made in the August 2021 meeting, and that's a fact. But as I had said earlier, neither Mr. Faisal nor myself, we were involved in the trial. We did not give evidence. So, in that sense, of course, the court made its finding based on the evidence before it. But the fact is that we did not have the opportunity to give our recollection to the court. So I'm still going to maintain that those findings cannot be held against me. And perhaps, at the next phase, whenever it is, I will take this up again.
Leader, you wish to respond?
I thank Ms. Lim for her clarifications. It is correct that Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal did not appear in the court proceedings, but Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal did appear and give evidence before the COP. And they gave evidence under oath, and the COP found that in respect of the making of the grave statement, in other words, the telling of Ms. Khan to take it to the grave, the COP found that Ms. Lim and Mr. Manap had lied about what had happened there. So you have a COP report where that finding is there. What today's motion does is it refers to the court finding, because you see the point is simply this: did the meeting happen, and were the words said? The COP found that meeting happened, those words were said, found all three of them were present. COP report is a report which, according to Mr. Singh, should be a supreme document. This is Parliament. Let me just clarify. Mr. Singh did not say that the document is supreme. He said Parliament is supreme. And I'm talking Parliament is sovereign. And this sovereign Parliament has a select committee that has made a report from a committee of privileges finding that Mr. Singh had made the statement that Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal were there and that they had lied to the COP. So the question in everybody's minds is, well, Mr. Singh's case is going to court, let the court make its findings, then we have the benefit of that. And we find that the court findings are pretty much the same as the COP's findings. On the point of the meeting occurred and the statement having been made. So, that being the case, it has implications. Because we could have proceeded back when the original report was made, we could have proceeded at the time. We didn't need the court findings. But what you have is where the court findings have confirmed that the meeting took place and the statement was made. That's why it has implications. That's all that this motion does, to note that it has implications. But Ms. Lim may want to take that up the next time when the next motion comes. And with respect to the point about the difference between Ms. Khan's and Mr. Pereira's case, Ms. Lim said that the difference was that in their case, they admitted their wrongdoing. That is a really interesting point, because that means that everybody who goes to court and who basically puts up a defense and is found guilty, so long as they didn't admit, it means that they're not guilty. You can't go, but what kind of rule of law is that? And what kind of system is that? You cannot go simply on the basis of has the person admitted or not. Here you have a system where you have a society, you have a court system, the court makes an adjudication, and as Parliament, we have to take note of that and act accordingly.
Mr. Singh, you wanted to clarify something? Mr. Singh?
No, Mr. Speaker. I raised my hand for a point of order and the leader corrected herself.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lim, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did, Speaker. Just to follow up on the leader's point, that as I mentioned in my clarification, the Workers' Party is looking into whether Mr. Singh has contravened the Constitution. Yeah.
Mr. Andre Loh?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a point of clarification for the Leader of the House. In her round-up speech, she made the assertion, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the voting patterns of the Workers' Party MPs will in some way indicate that we find ourselves above the rule of law, that we do not agree with the rule of law or we find ourselves above the law. Now, I respectfully disagree with this assertion. The rule of law implies that we respect the independence of the courts and their role as an independent arbiter in disputes. And once an adjudication is made and a ruling is passed, we respect it and we abide by it. And this is in the interests of order, and if not, we will have anarchy. That does not preclude us from disagreeing with their verdicts, and that does not mean that if we disagree, we are above the rule of law. And this is the clarification I have.
Leader?
I've noted Mr. Loh's statements. I just wondered how he was able to disagree with it when he wasn't a witness or a party to the court proceedings.
Mr. Loh?
I did not make the point that I personally disagree with the ruling. We have not formed an opinion. As Ms. Lim mentioned, the Workers' Party has our own processes. It is in progress. My point is that the leader has made the assertion that based on the way we are going to vote on this resolution, on this motion, that would imply that the Workers' Party sees themselves as above the law.
Leader?
Perhaps Mr. Loh could just clarify what his position is on all 6 limbs of the motion.
Mr. Loh?
My position on all 6 limbs of the motion is I agree with motions with limb 1 and 6, and I do not agree with limbs 2 to 5.
Leader?
Mr. Speaker, that pretty much speaks for itself.
Any other clarifications for the leader? The question is that this Parliament, 1, affirms that honesty and integrity are fundamental pillars of Singapore's parliamentary and political system. 2, notes the judgment in Pritam Singh versus Public Prosecutor 2025, SGHC 242, where the High Court upheld Mr. Pritam Singh's conviction for lying to the Committee of Privileges and the findings of the Committee of Privileges that he had guided Ms. Raisha Khan to continue with her lie to Parliament. 3, expresses regret at the conduct of Mr. Pritam Singh, which was dishonorable and unbecoming of a member of Parliament. 4, considers that Mr. Pritam Singh's conviction and conduct render him unsuitable to continue as the leader of the opposition, a parliamentary leadership position carrying important responsibilities, duties and privileges, and that his continuation in this role would undermine the standing of Parliament and public confidence in the integrity of Singapore's political system. 5, notes that the High Court judgment and the committee's findings have implications for Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Muhammad Faisal bin Abdul Manap, which have to be considered separately. And 6, calls upon all members of Parliament to uphold their solemn duty to respect and abide by the law, act with integrity at all times, and honor the trust placed in them by Singaporeans. Those who agree, say aye. Those, Mr. Singh? To record their dissent? Sure. Okay. So those who disagree, say no. Okay. Can I request those who like their dissent to be recorded to kindly stand up? Okay, we will have it recorded. Thank you. You may sit down. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that it is rising today, Parliament to stand adjourned to a date to be fixed.
The question is that at its rising today, Parliament do stand adjourned to a date to be fixed. Those who agree say aye. Those who disagree say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Parliament do now adjourn.
The question is that Parliament do now adjourn.